Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's version of What to Know from Dr. Mo. I am Ellis Dean, the Director of Digital Programming at BlackDoctor.org. And as you know, the smiling face that's there on the screen with me is Dr. Mo. So we have a great show tonight. We've got a couple of special guests, so you don't want to miss that. We've got some wonderful guests, but just want to, as the beginning of the show, we want to let you know that it is still March. I know we were coming up to the end of March, but March, as any other month, has a host of, celebration months and observance months. And March is both Women's History Month and Kidney Health Month. And so tonight we're going to do a double. We have a kidney specialist that is a pioneer and made history for women. So we're really excited about the interview with her. But at the beginning of the show, as we do every week, we ask you to do a couple of things for us. And so the first thing we want you to do is tell us where you're watching from. Give yourself a shout out, give your high school shout out, whoever you want to shout out, rep your city in the comment section. The second thing we want you to do is to tag a friend, share it, like, share, and comment. Share the show with your friends. And then finally, we want you to ask questions, because that is the premise of this show. Is called What to Know from Dr. Mo. We want you to ask all the questions that you can to ensure that you're getting the information that you need, because that's what the format of this show is. So we want you to ask questions. That's what we do. So I've said a whole lot, but I still haven't even gotten a word from our resident expert, and that is Dr. Mo. How are you, Dr. Mo?
Hey, I'm well. Happy Tuesday. How you feeling?
I am feeling good. It's allergy season, so this pollen is out there. It's whooping my tail every time I step outside my house. It's got a two-piece for me every time I step outside.
Allergy season. It is also winter/spring/whatever else decides to make a special guest cameo appearance right now. I don't know what's going on, but I'm thankful to be here.
Amen for that. I said I got some of our regulars, and I see you, Agnes. Shout out to you. So, do you want to bring on our guest?
Let's do it, because it is, as you said, we're rounding out Women's History Month, and it's also Kidney Health Awareness Month. And I thought, well, what better way to do it all, to cover all our bases, than to invite Dr. Velma Scantlebury. So for those of you who don't know, you're going to learn today. Dr. Velma Scantlebury is the first Black woman transplant surgeon in the United States. So
Say that
ask a
again. Say
friend.
that again. Say that
You
again for the
got it.
people in the
That's
back.
right.
Say it for the
So
people
what
in
I
the back.
want you to do, I want you to do a message. I want you to go through your Facebook Messenger. I want you to say, do you know who the first Black female transplant surgeon is in the U.S.? And when they put back question mark, who? Dr. Velma Scantlebury. Tag a friend, because this is something that you need to know. It is Black history today. It is women's history. It is our history and our future. Because when you look at who gets impacted by renal disease, who gets impacted by kidney cancer, who's hypertensive issues and who's on the transplant list, Dr. Scantlebury has a breadth of research in this area, and she has been advocating for Black and brown people over her entire career. And she's made some impressive strides to try to make sure that when they're giving out kidneys, and when we're talking about giving out kidneys, I mean transplants, that we are on those lists, because historically we have not been. But we face the highest numbers of kidney failure and dialysis rates. So anybody who who's on dialysis, who's got hypertension, who heard about something with kidneys, even kidney stones, this is the episode for you today.
All right. So let's, with no further ado, we're built it up. I want to do a drum roll, but I can't do it right now. We're going to welcome Dr. Velma Scantlebury to the program.
I love it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you, Dr. Mo and Mr. Dean? How are you doing?
We are doing great, and thank you for joining us, taking the time to join us. It is really an honor to have you on this program, and I mean that sincerely.
It's true. I gave you a Steve Harvey a Showtime at the Apollo. Put your hands together. If you can see the people clapping right now, because we're talking about, kidney health, but we're talking about Black history today. We're talking about women's history, and you're at the intersection of all of those. So we honor you and we welcome you today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Oh.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Scantlebury, so it's our understanding that you are from Barbados.
Yes, the greatest island in the Caribbean.
So we got two celebrities from Barbados, Dr. Scantlebury and Rihanna, some singer. But we're
Yeah.
going to go with Dr. Scantlebury as being our celebrity here tonight. So tell us how you ended from the Barbados to America and your journey into becoming the first kidney transplant surgeon here in the States.
Well, my mom had a vision for us as young kids, and she wanted to provide. And so for her journey and leaving us behind to come to America, that was her vision, to be able to allow me that opportunity to go to medical school. And so I ended up in Brooklyn, New York, went to school there, went to Columbia University for medical school, and then stayed at Harlem Hospital for 5 years, where I met the first female surgeon, Dr. Barbara Barlow, and I wanted to be just like her. I was going to come back to Harlem and take her job. That was my goal.
We all have those goals. I love it. I love it. You gotta put this like running a race, and you got that runner that's in front of you, and you say, "I'm going to
And
pass them."
Columbia University, and my research.
So how did you end up in kidney disease and in transplant?
In order to become a pediatric surgeon, I had to do research, and my research was in kidney transplantation with Columbia University. And with kidney transplantation, I went out to University of Pittsburgh to do what I thought was a fellowship to become better qualified to become a pediatric surgeon. And that was my exposure to transplant, and I realized I could marry. So that's how I ended up in transplant.
Dr. Moore, you're on mute.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the numbers of kidney transplants in this country and the technology, would you say that the numbers of renal transplants have gone up in this country? Are we seeing a need for more and more kidneys these days?
Yes, the numbers have gone up, but proportionately, we also have more people on the list. So let's say there's 100,000 people awaiting kidney transplantation. Only about 25 to 35,000 are going to get transplanted every year. And each year, you have many more thousand that are added. So the list continues to grow and grow. And so we're never going to catch up. We need to advocate more for organ donation, and we need to advocate for living donation as well.
That's
and
right.
In the African American community, that's a real obstacle that we need to really tackle, in getting folks to realize that you can be a living donor as well as a deceased donor.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that you can survive with one kidney, so you don't need both of them. Two is nice, but you could survive with one. Do you find that's a option that many people are choosing, or are they afraid of doing something like that?
We still have a long way to go in communities of color. We lag behind in living donation. We may be up there and getting more people deceased donors, but percentage wise, as far as living donation and finding friends, relatives, there's still a lot of people who are reluctant, who may have the same disease. So you really have to reach out to outside the family, especially when you have diseases like high blood pressure.
So I guess the question that I was having is that it slipped my mind. But Dr. Mo, go ahead. I had a moment.
Absolutely. So I guess I want to get to the heart of what are some myths that people have in our community about organ donation, right? Because you hear a lot of things, floating around the community about organ donation, and then who's eligible for that, and what do people believe about the care that they'll get if they donate an organ? Because I think that that speaks to a lot of folks' fear.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are many fears. Trust in your doctor in terms of knowing that if you have kidney disease, that if you want to be a donor, they want to sign the donor card because they don't believe in the system. They don't believe that it's going to be fair. And also, there's all those religious myths and misperceptions about uh, is bringing in or pastors and faith leaders to get on board to educate their congregations about the fact that organ donation is something that's possible.
I love that. And it's possible to do while you're living, right? Kidneys,
Absolutely.
liver, other organs as well. And I think that that is something people think that you have to be deceased or, on your way in order to donate an organ. And that's not necessarily the case, or they think that they will allow you. Like if you put, or I have heard Black folks say, and not just Black folks, but I've heard people say that if you put organ donor on your driver's license, that means they're not going to do everything to save you. They're not going to resuscitate, like it's some kind of DNR or do not resuscitate order.
Absolutely. And that is not true. It really is so far from the truth because as a transplant surgeon, we don't get involved with those patients. The ICU and the neurologist and the medical team is there to save every life that's possible. Organ donation does not come up until you have no longer have brain flow that is evident by CT scan or neurologic testing. And only at that point are they permitted to talk about organ donation after, there's established no recovery, no return.
So, Dr. Scantlebury, what is the process to get on that list, right? So I understand there's a list. You talked about it earlier, that there's a list that people have to get on and they're waiting to have an organ to find a match and get that transplant done. What is that process like to get on the list?
People need to understand that you don't have to get on dialysis to get on the transplant list. So many people are told, well, you have kidney failure, you need dialysis. But if you know you're headed in that direction, stage 3, stage 4, and you're headed towards alternate treatment for kidney disease, knowledge and understanding that if you can find a living donor or you can get on the list before or even avoid dialysis. Some people get on the list and are able to continue on the list even before they hit dialysis and have the opportunity to get a kidney transplant and bypass dialysis. If you have someone who's willing to donate to you, then that kidney, if it becomes compatible, you can get that kidney just before you hit dialysis and totally avoid it. So getting on the list is really about making sure you're healthy, that you don't have any outstanding cardiac problems. And even if for many patients, we will send them to the cardiologist. They may have to have stents placed, bypass surgery. You want to make sure you don't have any cancer. And so goal is to make sure that you're going to survive after the kidney transplant. We don't want you dying of something else within a year or two of getting that kidney. So we have to make sure that we put you through the rigors to understand that you have a better chance of surviving with that kidney transplant for at least 3 to 5 years.
So wait a minute, Doc. Let me ask you something, because I think I just uncovered another myth. You mean you don't have to be on dialysis in order to be eligible for a kidney? Did you
No.
say that? Wow. So I think people watching need to know, and I got questions about that too, because, at what stage of kidney disease can you get on that list? And then my next question for you is, what is dialysis and how does it work?
Yes. If your kidney function hits 20%, you are eligible to get on the transplant list. But you may not be ready for dialysis. Many people can function and go to work and still feel not perfectly, still feel really good before without needing to be on dialysis. Generally, dialysis may come when your kidney function gets below 15%, and then you're sluggish, you're tired, and you have to look at the symptoms. Dialysis is initiated not because of the number, but how you feel. You know, what your symptoms are. Are you holding on to fluid? Is the potassium too high? So dialysis is there to fix the issues. It's not going to reverse your kidney disease. It's just going to help filtering. And so with medications, many patients can alter their diet, reduce their fluid requirements, and still avoid dialysis and get on the transplant list. There's many patients on the list who I may call, and they're not on dialysis, and you say, you know, I have a kidney for you, and they say, you know what, I feel great. What am I improving other than the number? You know, that's their choice.
Right. What are you improving other than the number? Wow, that's something. And somebody said, how do you get on a different? How do you get on a different list? Are there more than one list, or is there one master list?
I'm sorry, you broke up there.
No problem. I said, are there more than one list, or is there just one master list? Because someone in our chat said, well, how do you get on a different list? Because I applied and they expect you to be on a list and they have to accept you, and it's a long process.
You can be geographically on as many lists as you can get to, as long as it's not within the same catchment area. If you're in New York, then all the centers in New York are belonging to the same pool of organ recovery units. So you have to step out of New York and maybe go to New Jersey. And if you're in New Jersey, you know, southern New Jersey may be different than northern New Jersey. Eastern Pennsylvania is different from western Pennsylvania. As I'm here in Delaware, but our program is with Philadelphia. So all the programs in Delaware are the same catchment. But if you live here, you can decide that as long as you can get to that program. If you want to go to Hopkins or Maryland, that's a different pool of kidneys. So yes, as long as you realize if you can get there when they call you, that's important. And if you can live there financially, you have to make sure that you can. Cost of living is also something to consider when you go into a different list to be listed.
Yeah, we did a show on with some kidney transplant surgeons back in October or November of last year, and there was a transplant patient that was on the show, and she had found states that had shorter lists, and she had gotten her name placed on those lists, and they called, and she had a bag packed ready to go. She had and you're right, it's about financials. So she was financially able to jump on that plane when they said go. I think she bought like an open ticket that's expensive. But she was determined to get a kidney, and so she had a little money set aside, and she had her bag ready to go. So when they said, "Can you be here in a day and how many hours?" She said yes, and she went straight to the airport and jumped on that plane and went and got her kidney. So, that's a bit extreme in terms of, but to Dr. Scantlebury's point, find out what the area is and get on, as many lists as you can find in your area that you can get to in the amount of time that's required.
And it speaks to the fact, though, that none of this is cheap. Transplant process is timely, it's expensive, and maybe in some ways prohibitive for people who come from certain socioeconomic background. And so it is very much a financial game, is it not, Dr. Scantlebury?
Absolutely. Even for patients when they're going through the evaluation stage, you have to look at the income and can they afford these expensive transplant medication. And so for that patient, $2,000 is a whole lot. It may mean you're not paying your gas bill, not being able to pay your rent. So those things are, and so we take into consideration affordability. Affordability is also a crucial element.
What's the target in terms of if somebody has a transplant? What would be an ideal scenario? What in terms of length of survival after transplantation? Is it normal life expectancy? Is it 3 to 5 years? Is it 10, 20 years? What's a good kind of average in terms of how long they can live with a transplanted kidney?
Remember, the transplant is not you, and your body is always working to get rid of something that's not your genetic makeup.
Right.
Unless you have an identical twin, you're not going to keep that. That kidney will not last forever.
Okay.
And so I tell people it's like a car. You can get a brand new car with no issues, and it'll last you 20 years. You can also buy a used car, such as a donor who is not very young, but maybe older, may have some underlying issues. You may still get 10 years out of that kidney.
Mm-hmm.
But you may also have an excellent kidney and have terrible rejection. So you don't keep that kidney beyond 2 to 3 years because your body refuses to accept that kidney.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you can also have a used car, an older donor kidney, some issues, but you do well with that. And despite not being a young kidney, you still keep it for 15, 20 years. So your underlying problem, as well as the kidney, but it will not last forever. Some people are on the end of the bell curve shape and have lasted for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And those are the longest survivors.
Huh. That is something else, I guess. Get that transmission. If that transmission doesn't go, you're in business.
Yep. And so it's just, I tell people, you can't get that kidney and walk away. You have to constantly get checked. You have to make sure that it's working well.
Mm-hmm.
You need your numbers, and just as you have to have regular tune-ups, and so it's important to follow up with that kidney transplant. So you're forever tied to a physician to make sure that you're not rejecting. And yes, you can have a second kidney, you can have a third kidney, but it's important to know whether that kidney is failing and to get you back on the list and avoid dialysis if possible.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So that brings us to the question. We say, okay, how do we prevent? How do we keep the kidneys that we came with on this new car? Well, this car ain't as new as it used to be. But I say, how do I keep the kidneys that came with? How do I keep them healthy and performing to the point where I don't, start that process of renal failure where I need to see you? I love you, but I don't want to see you as a patient.
Know your numbers, know your risk factors. Just as we tell people, know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol, know your blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C, know your creatinine.
Mm.
It's silent disease. You may never know your creatinine is getting worse until is reflected in your numbers. A simple test of checking your kidneys with the rest of your blood work, as well as a urine test to check for protein, is something that should be done on an annual basis, because many people end up in the emergency room and suddenly they're diagnosed with kidney failure and they have to go on dialysis. They never knew it was happening. It's very important to know that that's the road. If you are at risk, there's a website with the Kidney Foundation called minuteforyourkidney.org. You can just Google it, Minute for Your Kidney. It's a quick 1 minute test that tells you, are you or maybe at risk for kidney disease? 90% of people who have kidney disease are unaware of their kidney disease. 90%.
Wow,
And
90%.
You and I disease, both of which are prominent and very prevalent within communities of color. So we are at risk. High blood pressure is difficult to treat and requires more medications than a person compared to being a white person. So that's crucial to understand.
Wow.
Well,
Does kidney disease run in families? Is there any hereditary component to it? Let me ask that again. Does kidney disease run in families? Is there any hereditary component to it?
Kidney disease can be certainly we know that there's a gene for high blood pressure. Because a certain percentage of people may have a predisposition to high blood pressure. And it's important to know that. A lot of what we face, though, is environmental. It's our diets, just as diabetes, our food, our environment. We use the salt shaker too much. Those things contribute to our risk for kidney disease and high blood pressure. Too much salt, we got to back off on the salt shakers.
Well, you right on our block right now, Doc. You right on our block in terms of our audience and our patients. So Black folks, you got to put that salt down. And I saw somebody say this the other day. It was doctor. He said, taste your food before you put salt on it. And too many folks will grab that salt shaker before they even put the food in their mouth. I'm like, how you know it needs salt? Like,
It's so true.
So folks, taste your food. Reduce your salt. I think, Dr. Mo, what is that number? I think it's like 1,300 milligrams or no. What's to stay below in terms of your sodium intake? Yeah, so it's 613. And for Black folks, cut that in half.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a
10,000.
predisposition for hypertension. So take that 1,300, cut it in half.
Yeah, I say at least less than 1,000. Dr. Scantlebury, we had a question about kidney stones and about recurring kidney stones and how that affects your kidney function and kidney disease. Can you tell us a little bit about kidney stones and how they develop?
Kidney stones can be caused by so many different minerals. It can be calcium, it can be uric acid, some all hereditary. So if you're at risk for kidney stones, you need to, and you know someone in your family has kidney stones, you want to make sure that you get your workup to look for whether you have kidney stones. Most people will know if they do. If you have ever passed a kidney stone, you will never forget that. That's for sure. It is very painful. But the kidney stones are generally small. Only when they start enlarging and multiple in the kidneys can it present a problem with eventual obstruction in your kidneys. So it's important to know that.
Yeah, I've heard stories. I haven't had them. Thank you for that. But I've heard stories about those stones because all they can do is break them up, and then you have to pass them through your urethra. You have to pass them like your urine, and then that portion right there, the spiky stones, can be very. I heard it's very very painful. Yeah. So yeah, let's not have that. So
Nothing fun
check your
about
family.
that.
And I think I'm going to reiterate a point that Dr. Scantlebury is making for everybody to. This is what you don't want to miss. And Dr. Gary put it in the chat. Know your numbers. Okay. And to know your numbers means you have to go to your primary care physician and get a physical on a regular basis. Right. So you have to see your primary care physician annually, at least annually, so you can know your numbers. So they can check to see if you're creatinine, and they can check from the year before. All right. Last year you were this year you're this. We're seeing there's a spike there. Is that the sign for kidney disease? If you see, so the only way your doctor is going to be able to notice those things if you have a consistent record in their office and they can notice differences and changes over time. But if you only go see, if you're using an emergency room as your primary care physician, or you're only going to see your doctor once every 3 or 4 years, they're not going to have enough to be able to identify and notice where there could be some problems that they can catch it ahead of time. And then you turn around and blame the doctor for that. No, that's not the doctor's fault. If you go on a regular basis, you can get your numbers and know your numbers and track them, write them down, and know how your numbers are going over time. So that's my soapbox. I just stepped off of it, but I had to get that and reiterate that because Dr. Scantlebury is making a very good point.
Well, you know what? And I put in the chat here that if you are watching, you joining us, we're talking about what to know from Dr. Mo. We're talking about kidney disease. The
Yes.
two little, they're shaped like kidney beans, hence the name kidneys. But they are responsible for eliminating waste in the body. And we're
Mhm.
talking about organ transplant with Dr. Velma Scantlebury, who is the U.S. The first Black female organ transplant surgeon in the country. So we're here with a living legend. And if you're watching us today, I want you to put in the chat, I put a question for the audience. What is the number one sign of early kidney disease? If you think you know it, type it in. Is it dark urine? Is it fatigue? Is it, whatever you think? Is it pain? What's the number one sign of early kidney disease? That things are starting to go a little bit sideways. We want to hear from you.
And so while we're waiting on to get some responses for that, so Doc, don't answer that question just yet. But what I want to ask you while we're waiting for people to respond to that is, we know that the liver can heal itself, right? And can regenerate. Can we do anything in our lives if we started on that path of renal failure, can we reverse it in any way? Can we do some things to slow it down or reverse that process?
It all depends on your cause of renal failure. If you have high blood pressure, it's like scarring.
Okay.
Once you develop the scarring in your kidney, you're not going to be able to reverse it. If you get to a certain stage, there may be some things that you can do to slow down the process.
Okay.
And so there's certain medications that can really improve the filtering mechanism, but it also requires a lot of dietary to get rid of, such as potassium, decreasing your protein, losing weight, getting rid of the extra fluid that your kidneys can't get. Don't drink as much. So you want to by backing off with your diet, and that's important. Controlling your diabetes, that's important.
Right.
Controlling your blood pressure, yeah, limiting your fluid intake. Your doctors may change your blood pressure medicine and add what's called a ACE inhibitor, because that helps the flow of the blood into the kidney to decrease it and decrease the amount of protein your kidneys are wasting. So those are things that will be done to help your kidney function.
Well, those are all great tips. So diabetics, please understand that if you have uncontrolled or difficult to control diabetes, that could be a straight line to chronic kidney disease. So you have to make sure that the medications that you're taking, that your doctor is also monitoring your kidney functions if they're treating you for diabetes, especially Black folks. You heard diet, right? If you are a runner, right? A lot of times, we run. She just said potassium. Got to be careful with potassium. A lot of people that exercise and run a lot, they want to get potassium to get that aching out of the bones. But if you get too much, as we always say, too much of a good thing is not good for you. And so you can overdo the potassium and anti-inflammatories. If you take too much anti-inflammatories, those are also things that I'm learning this because, as I said before the show, before we get on, I disclosed my father is in dialysis and has been in for several years. And there have been some times where my doctor had said, he noticed some situations in my urine. And so I've been very, very hyper vigilant about learning about how to keep my kidneys clear. Now, I'm not as good on the drinking part, Doc, so you got to help me on that one. So
We'll work on it together, my friend. We're gonna work it out. I need to drink more water, so we're gonna be accountability buddies here. But
yes,
Dr. Scantlebury, you have said a mouthful, and I'm putting it in the chat: diabetes, hypertension, obesity. I think smoking can be a risk factor
yes,
for kidney
everything.
disease. Right. And what about our bodybuilders, right? What about people who are doing a lot of supplements and things? And, are there some risk factors for the people who think they're super, super healthy, but maybe taking, protein shakes and things like that?
I think she's
Uh-oh.
on. Here we go.
I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Okay,
Yes.
we got you. We got you.
Okay. Yes. Certainly, too much protein can be harmful to your kidneys. Our
Okay.
body requires a certain amount of protein. Anything else over that is going to work your kidneys harder to excrete that extra protein. And if you have underlying kidney disease, it's going to make it work even more. There's certain stages of kidney disease, especially when you're failing and you're in that stage 4 to 5. You don't want to be taking a lot of protein because your kidneys are going to work harder. So it's important. A lot of these protein supplements also have other additives that could be really bad for your kidney. So that's important to know too. Not all of them are what's, you got to watch the labels.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure. So
There it
Read your
is.
labels. Read your labels. Know what's in it. Know what it is. Uh, I used to supplement a lot. Maybe that's what caused some of those early concerns, and I stopped. Right, I was like, it's not. It wasn't worth it.
you're making noise.
Mm-hmm.
My health wasn't worth it. Just the temporary gain that you get from taking those supplements. So understand what the trade off is when you're doing those things, and understand what the long term ramifications are. So please,
Sure.
plant based diet. If you want some protein, get you some lean protein, some chicken breast. Those things. There's a lot of protein in chicken breast, right? I think it's 20 grams in a boneless, skinless chicken breast. So you can get your protein elsewhere. So just understand.
Absolutely.
The noise.
Yeah.
Yep, there are other sources of protein as well, but you get more of it from your diet than and you utilize it better than from supplements.
Yep.
So circling back to our question, we polled the audience
Oh
and
yeah.
we asked everybody, give us some things. What are the early signs, early warning signs, the first signs of kidney failure, of kidney disease? And we've had some answers here, Dr. Scantlebury. Somebody says swelling in the legs. Somebody said bubbles in the urine, swelling of the feet and ankles. The fluid builds up. So they're on to something here. Skin discoloration, high protein in the urine. Let's see. What else did we have? I think those are our main answers for the signs of kidney failure. Could you tell us what are the early signs that your kidneys are in trouble? The number one.
Protein in your urine, as long as you're not diabetic. Protein is in your urine if you're diabetic, but if you're not diabetic, it should not be there. And so that's important to understand. Many people will have that protein long before anything else occurs. So, especially children, I want to reiterate that when your kids go to the pediatrician, teenagers, make sure they get their urine checked. And that's just a simple urine test is very important. And so many kids don't, we somehow forget to, come back next time. They can't go to the bathroom, get it checked. They may not get blood work, but get that urine checked.
That's great advice.
High protein in urine. Good answer, Tabitha. I want to give you a shout out for having the right answer. So high protein in your urine. So have that checked, and that's simple, right? When you go for your test, when you go for your exam, they give you that cup. Go fill it up, right? And check your numbers. And now it's all online, So there's no reason you don't have to call the doctor in the morning to get your results. You don't have to wait for that call from the doctor to see if there's something wrong. They put all your records online, and you have access to them, and you can check them all the time. So there's really no excuses for you to be more involved in your healthcare. Can't leave it up to the doctor. You
That's
have
just
to
so
be more
bad.
involved.
Can't get through.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask another
Yeah.
question from
And
a.
it's important to realize that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be high protein, because not every protein in the urine does not necessarily mean that you will end up with kidney disease. It used to exclude people from getting as pilots and getting in the army, but because they say, okay, something is coming down the line. But now we realize that some people may have protein in the urine to follow through.
That just means,
Yeah.
yep.
So following through with that protein is important.
Yeah. So pair it with the other tests. So Dr. Scantlebury mentioned creatinine levels. So protein is a sign, but hey, get your levels checked and make sure that if they're all pointing in one direction, then you might you might be worried. Uh, but yeah, so make sure all of the numbers are right. But you got to know what they are. You got to know what is normal level for each one of these tests that they're running at the. Know what's normal. Know what's a normal blood pressure. Know what's normal for your cholesterol. You should be able to rattle those off the top of your head. For men, you should be know what a normal PSA is. Got to know what the normal levels are.
We need to put that on a website somewhere. We need to provide like in the blog, Ellis. I'm telling you, because I don't know that people do know what normal cholesterol is and good cholesterol and bad, or what normal creatinine should be. So might need to put a reference sheet somewhere for people. And I know your labs come with it too, but it can be a lot to interpret and a little confusing to look at.
Right.
Dr. Scantlebury, in the era of herbal medicine and people who are very much interested in incorporating herbal medicine into their health practices, we had a question from the chat and asked if kidney cleanses are necessary. And I'm not sure if they mean like a detox, which is what I think they mean. I don't think they mean any sort of physical cleaning of the kidneys, but like not like colonics or anything. Don't go flushing anything up your urethra, please and thank you. But kidney cleanses. Is there anything that you recommend, or do people ask about it? Is that even a thing?
If your kidneys are working, they're cleansing constantly. You don't need to do anything else. Drink more water if your heart can take it. We talk about swelling in the feet. If swelling is generally, it's not just kidney, it's heart. So not everybody can drink 8 glasses of water a day. It depends on your underlying heart disease. You don't want to put yourself into heart failure. But your body will cleanse your kidneys as long as they're functioning and they do the job. There's nothing you need to do. If your urine is dark, then you may need to drink more fluids. That's a good sign. Someone mentioned bubbles in your urine. That may be protein. Some men will say, if my urine is very bubbly, it may be protein. But make sure that your urine is a nice pale color, and then you're drinking enough, and you're flushing your system.
With little smell. But I'm gonna throw that. I'm gonna throw that piece in there.
Go ahead, throw it in there. We're talking real talk today. So the best detox is water. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
There it is.
So speaking of cleanses, we're gonna bring on another guest that's gonna help us talk about how we can naturally cleanse our body and keep our body healthy. And that is Dr. Monique from Veganishes. Her show is every Thursday at 8 p.m. Her show is Veganish, and we talk about how to eat a more plant-based diet. So Dr. Mo, I thank you for joining us, Dr. Monique. I got two Dr. Monique. My name is Monique Overload today.
You can't go wrong. You literally cannot lose.
Twice as nice. That's all I'm saying. It's twice as nice Tuesdays. Here it is. What's going on, Dr. Mo?
You coming from the Oscars? What's really happening?
Well, I had to come correct. Thank you so much for letting me grace the stage and share the stage with Dr. Monique, Dr. Gary, and also Dr. Scantlebury. Thank you all so much for the time. I appreciate being here.
So what are those things? People want to know how to do a natural cleanse. So I know we take all those supplements. We go to I'm not even going to say a name of brand of a store, but with the Shoppies and the NCs and all this other stuff out there, and take these pills. What could they be eating in their natural diet to help do what those pills purport to do?
Hey, that's a great question, because like we've talked about on my show before, taking those pills, those supplements, those vitamin supplements, a lot of times you're just paying for expensive pee. Okay. And so, the dosage you would need to take for your body to absorb that, you're really just, your kidneys are flushing that out down the drain. But it all goes back. Yeah. It all goes back to what we have said across the platform so many times, is whole unprocessed foods, fruits and vegetables are chock full of what you need, of what your body needs. And one thing I've recently learned that I just think is so cool. I'm in culinary school, and we just finished up a block on seasonality, which is what food is in season when, and it correlates with what your body needs during the time of year. So for example, in the summertime, what's in season? Watermelon, tomatoes, cucumbers, things that are juicy, things that have natural water content. In the wintertime, when we need more vitamin C, guess what's in season? Citrus fruits. your grapefruits, your oranges, your limes and lemons.
Your leafy greens.
Leafy greens, you can get those year round. So it's amazing when you start to kind of pay attention to these things. The earth provides a lot of what we need, all of what we need,
Yes, it
actually.
does.
So, being more cognizant, being more aware of where you're getting your food, what you're getting, how you're processing it, all of that will help your body do what it's meant to do.
I love that. Ayurvedic medicine looks at that as well. And when I do talks at the temple, sometimes we'll talk about the screenings that they need to get seasonally as well, and try to incorporate this sort of health maintenance and screening in with the diet. But you're right. The universe, Mother Nature, God provides every single season. So this is really exciting stuff. I have put into the chat. And I want you, if you're watching, you got twice the Mo power here is Mo squared. You still got Dr. Scantlebury. There it is. More power to you. Dr. Velma Scantlebury is rounding out Kidney Health Awareness Month, Women's History Month. LSU over here looking like Hugh Hefner with all this gorgeous black melanin around you. We're talking about kidneys. I want you to put in the chat some foods that are bad for your kidney health, right?
Yes.
Foods that maybe are not great for kidney health. So while we're chatting, I want you to start talking about it, because we got right here the culinary expert, and this is a great time to talk about it.
That's a great question. If I may just jump in, one of the reasons that we talk about why processed meats are bad for you, and I'm gonna help y'all out. I'm gonna give you a couple of answers here, but hot dogs, sausages, ham, bacon, all that stuff that we know and love, right? But it adds to the acidity of your body. It raises your ammonium levels, all that stuff that makes your kidney go into overdrive. Not to mention the nitrates that can be turned into harmful carcinogens, things that promote cancer formation. So when you learn about this stuff, it really starts to make sense. So that's why we always are promoting the least processed that you can have, wherever you can get that from, whatever's affordable to you or whatever's accessible to you. The more whole the food is, the less processed is going to be better for you.
And Dr. Scantlebury, let me ask you, rope you into this conversation. Are there foods that people should avoid if they are on the transplant list, or if they have a recently transplanted kidney? Are there some foods that they should maybe steer clear of?
Well, certainly on dialysis, you need to follow your nephrologist recommendations because we're not managing your diet there. But then after transplant, there are some fruits that, I know for dialysis patients, they need to stay away from star fruit, and they need to stay away from things that are high in potassium. Generally, and so that becomes important. The citrus fruits are usually not recommended if you're on dialysis. The very few, maybe apples and grapes, are pretty much the fruits that they could eat. But then after dialysis, grapefruits are often really interact with your transplant medicine. So we tell people to avoid. But the other green leafy vegetables, eat all the green leafy vegetables you want.
All right, black folks. I know we've been talking about stuff that we do that's bad, but that pot of greens, now some of the stuff you put in there, you can't put the ham hock in there. You got to take the ham hock
Yes.
out. I know it, but keep the greens. Prepare them differently. Prepare them a little differently. They still can taste good, but keep the greens.
All right. Well, let's get Dr. Mo in here, and let's say if you are looking to prepare your greens a little bit differently, right? Minus the meat, what are some seasonings and some things that people can do to make sure that their food doesn't taste so dare I say vanilla?
That's an excellent question. Let me tell you, I have been experimenting with some things that really have just been amazing. You've got your basic onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. We already know that. But things like smoked paprika, coconut aminos, liquid smoke, right? Add some of that in there. Not to mention a little bit of tomatoes, a can of tomatoes with some onions, with some collard greens, with some smoked paprika and some liquid smoke in a slow cooker. Baby, let me tell you, and so you're getting from the tomatoes, you're getting lycopene, which is great for prostate health. Fellas out there, you listening? It's also good for your skin. Tomatoes have good properties for your skin as well. Not to mention all the antioxidants and everything that fruits and vegetables have. But this is just the specific benefits they have. And then your leafy greens, of course, are going to help with your digestion, with your colon. They help you feel full. The fiber helps you feel full. So you add all that in there. But yeah, things like, don't be afraid to play with spices and seasoning, but anything that you can use to get a little smokiness. Some people use nutritional yeast because that can give you a little bit of an umami
I
taste
was
as
just
well.
getting ready to say that. Yep, that's my jam. That's my
Oh,
secret sauce right there.
isn't it?
Nutritional yeast and umami seasoning, which is mushrooms. By and large, it does have a little bit of mustard powder, but it's got
Mhm.
porcini and button mushrooms, and it gives it like this richness to it that tastes a little on the meaty side. So that umami seasoning can be a little salty. You got to be careful with
Right.
it. But
Exactly.
that and the nutritional yeast will give you the sensation of something hearty is in your vegetables or your dish.
I agree 100%. Another thing I like to use is capers. We don't tend to think about them as much, but capers, I make a vegan Caesar salad. And in case you don't know, the reason that Caesar salad is not vegan is because the dressing is made with anchovies. So to substitute for that, I use capers to get that salty brininess. And so, maybe I don't know if you want to necessarily put that in your greens, but I'm just saying there are ways to get that, if you're trying to get salty, if you're trying to get meaty, different ways to do that without using animal products. And I think it's exciting. I could go on and on and on. And I don't want to hijack the show, but my advice would just be, don't be afraid to experiment and try what's out there. And one more thing, if I may, curry. A lot of people use curry. I think curry adds such
Yes.
depth of flavor. Think about it. A lot of the cuisines that we like, Jamaican or Indian, Asian foods, have curry in them because curry has that, like, you may not always be able to put your finger on it, but you know when it's missing, right? Or when it's in there. And so,
Mhm.
experiment. There's lots of beautiful spices and herbs that you can add to your food to bring out that flavor.
See, Dr. Scantlebury, she came alive at that curry, Doc,
Yeah, that
from
courage.
Barbados. You know a thing or two
Oh,
about that curry
okay.
season, yeah?
Mhm.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it so much. Well, nobody put in the chat, so we're going to do a round robin here, and we're going to talk about foods that are bad for the kidneys. So, Ellis, you up first. Give me a food that's bad for the kidneys.
I would say like anything that's like salt cured pork, right? So like bacon is salty. We know I live in the South. I live in Georgia, so we know we like that country ham is super salty. So you're getting a double dose of something that's bad for your kidneys. You're getting an excess of sodium, and you're getting that ham and that processed with that super salt, that nitrates and all that stuff that Dr. Monique was talking about. I think salt cured pork is bad for the kidneys.
Oh, boy. All right. Dr. Mo, any foods that people should avoid that are kind of, bad for the kidneys?
And this one may shock a lot of people, but fish. Fish can actually be more harmful for the kidney, and particularly in raising your risk for kidney stones. It's actually worse than meat, believe it or not, worse than chicken, worse than beef. So high levels of fish. We tend to think of fish as, the healthier alternative. Not so much. It can actually raise your risk
To
for
know that.
kidney
I
stones.
did not. So it's not the mercury, because I was thinking the metals, the mercury in the
I
fish,
don't
but it's
think it's
not
really it.
that.
It's just the fish itself. Vegetarians who don't eat any types of meat products, they have a lower risk of kidney stones, and fish is lumped right in there with the meat, with the red meat.
Wow. Dr. Scantlebury, what you got for us?
I'm gonna put Dr. Mo on mute.
Oh,
I
I need
don't
to
like
drop him
that
out.
fish thing. I'm keeping my fish. I'm sorry. I got to do my
Thank
thing.
you. Thank
But
you.
I think it's yeah. I don't have salt. That's it for me.
Okay. I'm going with I'm going to go with alcohol. Right? I'll go alcohol. Too much alcohol is bad for the kidneys.
I'm double muting Dr. Mo and Dr. Mo. I'm double muting y'all. Y'all just
You
y'all
hear this,
killing my
Doc? We're cut
copyright
off.
law.
We're cut off.
I'm cutting it off. You're right. You're right. And we've talked about this on Dr. Monique's show in terms of alcohol. It has a lot of empty calories in it, especially when you start using mixed drinks and those and all that sugar that just piles up, and you don't count it as your sugar intake, right? Typically, we don't count those 5 or 6 drinks that we have, or those 2 or 3 drinks. Even when we go out with our friends, we don't count those sugary drinks,
Mm,
and that's adding to our sugar content, which could exacerbate if you're pre-diabetic. It could add to some. I think Dr. Mo, you said rapid with oxidation. I think
okay.
I'm using fancy words now. I'm stepping outside my lane, but sugar could add to a lot of those things, and it has a cancer connection. And I'm sure we could talk about that too. So definitely want to cut back on alcohol. It could also damage the liver as well because it gets probably all know it gets processed through the liver. And Dr. Scantlebury mentioned about scarring. That scarring happens on the liver as well, and you can have some problems with that. Liver goes bad. Woo, man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let me ask you this one. If you hate me over alcohol, you might not like me over caffeine. Is caffeine bad for the kidneys, Dr. Mo?
I didn't come across that in my reading about kidney. I will tell you, and a little off topic, but liver, it's been reported as being bad, but now it's back in vogue for being beneficial for the liver. So, if you can extrapolate, maybe it's good for the kidney too.
With
But
caffeine?
I haven't heard that it's harmful for the kidney. I have not.
I got some data on that, and actually, because it's a stimulant, right? Because it
Mm.
increases blood pressure, and because it causes vasoconstriction, and it can contribute to kidney stones. That the caffeine in excess may not be as helpful to the kidneys, especially if one has a tendency or a propensity for kidney stones. So, yeah, that caffeine, as much as I love it and I drink it all day long, I have to try to drink equal parts at least of water to help flush my
Yeah.
system.
So can I just ask a question? Because I just learned something. Is that caffeine no matter what the source? Example, coffee versus black tea or green tea? Or does that matter, or is it just caffeine?
You know,
Mm.
coffee is acceptable, but I think it's the caffeine itself so the higher levels of caffeine, so particularly the high caffeine beverages, the sports drinks, the Monster, the Red Bulls, shame for shame. But green tea has benefits, antioxidant benefits, so I think that the benefit outweighs the risk for things like green tea.
Okay.
It's kind of a
Yeah.
cleaner caffeine, if you will.
Mm.
Yeah. I've seen that they talked about coffee being good for like preventing dementia and Alzheimer's and things of that nature. So it seems like the more natural caffeines are better for you versus those energy drinks that are just kind of artificially added.
Mhm.
So, and I'm a Red Bull. I'm a Red Bull guy. So I gotta get up off the Red Bull too. Boy, y'all killing my diet right now. I'm not talking to y'all no more. Y'all going on timeout.
Ooh.
For real. Not
We
Dr.
had it.
Scantlebury. Dr. Scantlebury can stay. I'm getting rid of the moles because they killing my diet.
I love it. I love it. We're going to be closing out pretty soon. But Dr. Scantlebury, do you have some advice? There are a lot of folks who are watching who are on dialysis, who have kidney disease, who are on transplant lists. And I guess as it relates to us as a community, is there any message that you want to say? Anything uplifting that you can tell us about the state of Black folks and our kidneys that can leave people feeling a little bit encouraged today?
You can find someone who may be willing to give you a kidney. Just look, find what we call as an advocate. Find a donor advocate, someone. If you don't want to ask anyone, designate someone who you know who's going to say they're going to go to bat for you. They're going to find out what you need to do to get transplanted. And that social media, all those kind of things, who can get your word out. Talk to your congregation, talk to your book club, talk to your bingo club, your whist club. Really seek and spread the word. Increase the knowledge in our community, the more people will have a greater understanding of how they can help.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love
Well, we
that.
want to thank you, Dr. Scantlebury, for joining us today. This has been a living legend, and I don't use that term lightly, but she is definitely a living legend. Thank you, Dr. Monique May from Veganist Show. So you can catch Dr. Monique every Thursday at 8 p.m., and I'll be right there with the foolishness, speaking up for the man that likes to eat fish and drink alcohol. But we're going to get we're going to get better, and we teach you how to live or eat a more plant-based diet. So thank you, Dr. Mo, for joining us and popping in and helping us work on our kidney health. And before I hand it off to you, Dr. Gary or Dr. Mo, I will say this, that folks, we said it earlier tonight, and we're going to keep saying this. See your primary physician regularly, not sporadically. See them regularly. Know your numbers, know them each time, write them down, have a journal, keep up with your numbers, be an active participant in your well-being, in your health and wellness. Be an active participant. Don't just rely on your doctor. Be active about that. Dr. Mo, you're on mute.
I'm gonna close it out with the cancer connection because that's kind
Yep.
of my thing. It's sort of my jam. And the connection here is that chronic kidney disease contributes to your cancer risk. We know that people who have chronic kidney disease have a greater risk of developing cancers of all kinds. It stems quite a bit from inflammation. It stems from systemic changes because when your kidneys are starting to fail, that means your blood vessels are going wrong. That means there's problems with the heart. That means there's problems with a lot of different systems in the body. And that leads to mistakes in your cells that can increase your risk for cancer in other places, not just in the kidneys themselves, in the breast, in the colon, in the lungs. So you got to take care of those kidneys. And like Dr. Scantlebury said, you got to know your numbers. You need to
Mm-hmm.
be getting a CBC and a chemistry panel every year from your primary doctor and a urinalysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't been doing that urinalysis every year, you got to ask your doctor about that because it's really important. You need to know your blood pressure, right? And you need to do the things like Dr. Mo said here, some things that we can do to keep that blood pressure under control, to keep our cells healthy, keep that inflammation down. That starts with a plant-based diet. So we got our work cut out for us, Ellis, me and you, because we about in the same boat here. I'm over here crossing off all the foods.
I'm just gonna make me a pot of greens with some tomatoes and some onions and some curry. I'm gonna make some curry greens. Gonna be the first pot
There
of
you
curry
go.
greens.
Callaloo. I love it. We thank
It's
y'all for joining us.
it's
This
a
has
different
been
kind of
great.
pot liquor with his curry greens, but we're gonna make it work.
Don't say liquor.
All right, well, y'all, this has been a fantastic show. I really, really enjoyed it. This is just a wonderful conversation with just some friends, and it's just and getting some great quality health information. Dr. Scantlebury, just really thank you so much for all that you've done, opening doors, finding that person that you said, you know what, I'm going to be like her. I'm going to take her job, and look what you've done. You've blazed new trails and new ground. And so we're here. We honor you. We thank you for everything that you do and continue to do on the behalf of Black people and their kidney health. So thank you for that. Thank you all for joining us. We've got some great comments. Make sure you share the show. Share the show, tag a friend. We're going to re-air this tomorrow. So if you missed some things, we'll get to re-air. Check out Dr. Monique on Thursday at 8 p.m. Veganish. And we can help you give you some tips on how to eat a more plant-based diet because it's not as easy as you think. And tomorrow, the doctor is in. That is, if you are Black women, breast cancer, triple negative breast cancer, all types of breast cancer. We've got a great program tomorrow talking about the anxiety, pain, everything that goes into treatment, right? We don't talk about that. So they've got some great guests on tomorrow to talk about that. So if you haven't had breast, if you want to know more about it, if you know somebody that's going through it, tag them, let them know, hey, there's a great show. It's on every Wednesday, 6 p.m. right here on BlackDoctor.org. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're over our time. I wish I could keep this conversation going, but thank you all so much for joining us. And we will see y'all. I'll see you on Thursday with Dr. Mo, but we'll see y'all in 2 weeks here with What to Know from Dr. Mo.